you are not so different in terms of status, in terms of economic class or social class from these people who committed this evil. The difference between good and evil is not just black and white. There are a whole lot of gray colors in between. And the more you accept a particular gray color, the deeper you get into the dark. What part are you going to choose? If you say you wouldn't, then you're superhuman, because I myself will. If morality depends on consequences, then morality becomes uncertain. And worse, consequences-based thinking can be used to justify almost anything. When the lights fade, sometimes it may never come back on. They chose to remain fully human, fully thinking, and fully responsible. So welcome back to Module 2. And in this module, we would be talking about good, evil, and the fading light. In the first module, we talked about the monster within. And I gave 4 examples of how good people sustained evil. We spoke extensively about the banality of evil as well defined by Hannah Arendt. We spoke about experiments that were done, the Yale experiment, the Graham experiment, the Stanford prison experiment. We also spoke about the observation made by Christopher Brownie on the ordinary men, the Reservoir Police Battalion 101, and the nefarious activities that were carried out. Now, the reason why we gave or we highlighted all these examples was to show you that you are not so different in terms of status, in terms of economic class or social class from these people who committed this evil. And the reason why we did that was so that you are aware of the evil within, the monster within, because the truth about it is that sometimes you can be arrogant and prideful to think, and it's arrogant and prideful to think that you're just a good person and there's no evil in you. And of course, that is very false. In term 3, which will be handled by a different lecturer, we'll speak about God and how he interacts with human beings across different times and how he interacts with us with our different personality types. But this particular module, which is module 2, we are speaking about good and evil and the fading light. And the idea behind the module name is, a lot of times we tend to contradict, we tend to put good and evil as 2 major distinct contrasts. But the truth is that it is not usually the case. Like I said in module 1, it's an incline, or rather a decline, right? And decline meaning the difference between good and evil is not just black and white. It's there's a whole lot of gray colors in between. And the more you accept a particular gray color, the deeper you get into the dark. So that is just a summary of module 1 and the definition of, or rather the thinking behind the name module 2. So, how do we answer the question? How do good people remain good despite authority, despite authority that tells them to be evil, despite the peer pressure from their peers to continue in a path that is not morally upright, despite so even the human inclination, that's the propensity that we have to commit evil? How do we remain good? How do we stay strong, stand our ground? And when I thought about this question, amongst every other person, one person stands out. His name is Immanuel Kant. Now, again, he's a German philosopher. I'm going to highlight his moral philosophy. He wrote about political philosophy, but moral philosophy is what I'm going to highlight. So, to understand Kant's moral philosophy, we first need to understand the problem he was trying to solve. Kant looked at moral thinking of his time and found it deeply unsatisfying. Most moral systems he observed were built on consequences, on outcomes. Now that's what we call utilitarianism. So utility, the outcome. So basically, at Immanuel Kant's time, people judged morality based on the outcome. Now, let me explain what this means real quick. I need to use a scenario that works. So, good. This comes to mind. So let's assume you have, this is a question you should ask yourself. You are a train operator. So you're a train operator and you're on your way to a particular destination. And on your path, you have two paths. So part A and part B. And in part A, there are 5 train construction workers working on the rail. They don't know that a train is coming. And on part B, there is a loved one of yours. So maybe your brother, your wife, your husband, whatever it is. But someone you love dearly. The question I want to ask you is, if you have the ability as a train operator, to choose what path the train goes to, what path are you going to choose? Now, obviously, we know the answer is going to be you're going to kill, or you're going to choose the path of killing 5 construction workers because you don't know who they are in order to save your loved one. And if you say you wouldn't, then you're superhuman because I myself will, right? But the question becomes, does the value of 1 life equal to 5 lives? Or the value of 5 lives equal to 1 life? Now, the more context I throw into this particular scenario, you realize that our choices begin to change. So the first scenario is you have 5 people you don't know and 1 person you love dearly. What path are you going to choose? Obviously, you're going to choose the path of the 5 people you don't know. You will feel bad, you will feel sad, but you will do that you will rather do that than killing someone that you already do know. The second scenario is, let's assume it's 5 people you don't know and 1 person you also do not know. Obviously, that becomes more sensible because what you do is you rather kill 1 person than kill 5 people. So that relative morality was the problem that Kant was trying to solve. Again, my example is a bit extreme. So I'll continue. They say in essence, an action is good if it produces good results. So it doesn't matter. So the end justifies the means, basically. An action is bad if it produces bad results. The classic version of this thinking is called utilitarianism. I struggle to pronounce that word because of my mother tongue. So, well, the idea that the right thing to do is whatever produces the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Kant rejects this completely, and his reason was simple and powerful. If morality depends on consequences, then morality becomes uncertain because you can never fully predict consequences. And worse, consequences-based thinking can be used to justify almost anything. If torturing 1 innocent person will save 100 others, does that make the torture right? Now that's a question. In Brothers of Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is one of my favorite authors, he made this point. He said, I would not kill an innocent child to save 1 million souls. And basically what he was trying to say there was, he was trying to highlight the fact that we can focus on outcomes more than we can focus on the morality itself. But it's so interesting because in his book, the particular chapter is called Grand Inquisitor. He now brings Christ into the image because Christ is the one who dies so that a lot of people will be saved, right? And he's an innocent person. So again, I won't go into the book in essence. So Kant says that if torturing 1 person, he asks a question, if torturing 1 person would save 100 others, does that make the torturing right? If lying to someone will make them happier, does that make the lie morally acceptable? In Kant's opinion, no. Emphatically, no. He argued that morality cannot depend on outcomes because outcomes are uncertain. Morality must be built on something more solid, more reliable, more universal than results. It must be built on reason.